There are so many ways to make airplanes safer. For example, they could have ejector seats so that every passenger could be rescued. In reality though, it's way more difficult than it sounds. If there were ejector seats, your trip would be very different. Everyone would have to be strapped into a seat with a harness to make sure they wouldn't fall out of it. Then you would have to wear an oxygen mask all throughout the flight. An emergency can occur at any time. Then, ejection in itself is a big pressure on your body. Even fighter pilots who are physically prepared can still suffer severe injuries. For an average person, this process wouldn't be safe. So, however cool it sounds, ejection seats aren't very practical and are actually quite dangerous. Okay, well, at least they could have a parachute for each passenger. But this wouldn't be very useful either. Parachutes only sound like they can save many lives. First, having them isn't efficient. They're very costly and heavy. So a plane would need to burn more fuel while flying if there were parachutes on board. It would all be worth it though if parachutes could make an actual difference to the safety of people, but they can't. Commercial planes aren't designed in a way that would make it safe to jump out of them, especially with a couple hundred people on board. Next, passengers aren't trained to use them. Imagine there's an emergency. The plane is falling, and 200 people are trying to deal with a parachute for the first time in their lives. It would be an absolute mess. Lastly, it's not safe to jump from the high altitudes planes fly at. So, oxygen masks, life vests, and boats are the best life-saving equipment, and every plane has those. You know those huge engines that they have under the wings? Yeah, look at them. They don't look safe at all. Birds can get pulled in, and it actually happens. They could at least put a grate in front of the rotating parts to prevent birds from getting in there. Turns out those engines pull inside huge amounts of air, and this is crucial for them to work properly. The more air gets swallowed, the more air gets compressed, mixed with fuel, and burned. And then, more of it gets pushed out from the other side, keeping the plane going. A cover at the front would be a barrier, significantly reducing the air inflow that is crucial for the proper work of the engines, and this would endanger the passengers. But hey, don't be too upset. Birds fly way lower than planes do, so they're only in danger for a few minutes at the beginning of the flight while the plane is climbing altitude, and at the very end when the plane is landing. So very few of them ever get pulled in, and if they do, it's never a threat to the engines or passenger safety. Planes also don't change up the gears like cars do, so technically they can't go backwards. The reason for this is that planes don't need to go backward. They can just turn around and move in the opposite direction, but face first. The only time when they need to move backward is when they have to get to the gate. And for those times, there's help. Pushback tractors. Those are small vehicles that can connect to airplanes and move them in the required direction. Watch out for those next time you fly. But technically speaking, planes can go backward if the engines start pushing the air forward instead of backward. But this is very dangerous for everyone around. One of the very few cases when they do it is during landing, to help slow the airplane down. There are cameras on the outside that let pilots navigate taxiways better. They come in especially handy during tricky maneuvering. But do you know there are also cameras in airplane cabins? You can relax, there are no cameras in the lavatories. But yes, they are there in the cabin, and for security reasons only. Flight attendants monitor them to see what's not visible from their own seats. Of course, flight attendants can check everything just by walking down the cabin, and that's exactly what they do most of the time. So, cameras are mostly used during takeoff and landing, when everyone, including flight attendants, is supposed to sit down, as those are the most dangerous stages of a flight. Notice that it's exactly during these stages that the rules are particularly strict. All electronic devices should be turned off or put on airplane mode, and big electronic devices should be stored away. Window blinds should be raised and tables folded. Seats should be put in the upright position. You need to have your seatbelt fastened, and so on. This is all done for safety and to ensure fast evacuation in case of emergency. So let's discuss these rules. Airplane mode on electronic devices is important to make sure that the signals that devices transmit don't interfere with the plane's electronic systems. If they interfere, they will block the radio's frequency pilots need to get their instructions. Do you remember that clicking sound a speaker makes right before your cell phone gets a call if the two devices are close? This is the sound pilots might hear while communicating with air traffic control. Now, putting away large devices like laptops is important because they might turn into obstacles if you need to get out of the plane fast in case of an emergency. All the pathways should be as clear as possible. This is why everything should be packed away, seats straightened, and tables folded. There should be nothing blocking anyone's way. And lastly, window blinds. The lights on the airplane get turned off too. Those two things are done to make sure your eyes get used to the natural light outside the aircraft. Imagine it's night, some emergency happens, and the lights that were left on suddenly go off. People need to evacuate as fast as possible, but their eyes aren't adjusted to the dark yet, and they can't see anything. This will slow everyone down. If the lights inside are out, people get used to the darkness and will be able to evacuate faster. The same goes for window blinds. If it's day and they are raised, people are used to the light outside and can evacuate faster. Another reason is that when blinds are raised during landing, people outside can see what's going on inside the plane. For example, if there's fire or smoke and where exactly. This way, they can plan the evacuation process better. Also, you might have noticed black triangles drawn above some windows on the airplane. These triangles mark the seats from which the view on the airplane's wings is the best. It's needed for the crew to find the spot as fast as possible if, in case of emergency, they need to inspect the engines, slats, or flaps. This little triangle saves the plane crew a lot of time. We do talk about emergencies a lot, but they really don't happen often. It's more dangerous to drive a car than to fly by plane, and most of us get in the car every day. Yet, the fear of flying is still very much out there, and people can get superstitious. In many cultures, the number 13 is considered unlucky, so airplane companies that often fly to those destinations just omit row 13. It's a small thing to do, but it can spare a few anxious passengers who happen to sit in row 13. In other cultures, like in Italy and Brazil, 17 is the unlucky number, and some aircraft have both rows 13 and 17 missing. In airplanes that fly to China, they can often omit row 14 instead. Let me tell you a terrifying story. You're on a flight, 35,000 feet in the air, sipping coffee, listening to music over your earphones, when suddenly, a hunk of metal the size of a baseball rips through the plane like a bullet from space. No warning, no escape, just a silent demise falling from the sky at 17,000 miles per hour. Sounds like a disaster movie? Perhaps, but it's also a very real scenario, and this should be a wake-up call. Right now, Earth is being surrounded by thousands of pieces of space junk like non-functioning satellites, rocket parts, or orbital shrapnel. Most burn up, some don't, and aviation experts warn, it's only a matter of time before one of them punches a hole in a plane full of passengers. Think the sky is empty once you're above the clouds? Of course not. In fact, it's busier than ever, from both above and below. Every day, around 100,000 flights crisscross the globe. At the same time, thousands of satellites, old rocket stages, and debris fragments are zipping through space just a few hundred miles above your head. We've basically turned low Earth orbit into a junkyard, and commercial planes are flying just beneath it. It's like cruising down the highway while someone dumps metal scraps from a bridge overhead. It might miss you, until it doesn't. So what exactly is all this flying trash? It's called space junk. Basically, all the stuff we once shot into orbit that's now just floating uselessly around up there, drifting, waiting to lose enough speed to come back to Earth.
Think non-functioning satellites, spent rocket boosters, metal fragments from past missions, and the occasional wrench or bolt lost during a spacewalk. Right now, researchers say there are over 2,300 rocket bodies still circling our planet, and that's just the big stuff. In total, we're tracking tens of thousands of objects larger than 4 inches, and possibly millions of tiny pieces too small to see, but large enough to cause serious damage. Here's the scary bit. This junk zips around Earth at the speed of 17,000 miles per hour. That's fast enough to turn even a paint chip into a flying projectile. A piece the size of a coin could pierce a spacecraft or an airplane like paper. Most junk burns up in a fiery goodbye, but sometimes a stubborn chunk survives the fall. So far, no commercial airplane has been struck by falling space debris. Lucky us, or lucky you. I don't fly that often, but luck doesn't last forever. There have already been plenty of close calls. Large chunks of junk have survived re-entry and crash-landed on Earth, sometimes near homes, farms, or even highways. In one case, a pressurized metal fuel tank from a rocket landed in Texas. In another, a long metal panel dropped into a remote field in Australia. In 2022, the situation became super serious for a few hours. Spain and France temporarily shut down parts of their airspace due to an uncontrolled re-entry of a Chinese rocket. Over 600 flights were delayed because no one could be certain where that chunk of metal might fall. That was the first time in history that air travel was interrupted because of space debris. And if current trends continue, it probably won't be the last. Now, picture that over the US on a holiday weekend. Jam-packed airports, thousands of flights, and suddenly, sorry folks, we might have some heat-resistant screws coming from space. Flights will be resumed soon. The problem is that re-entries can't always be predicted with pinpoint accuracy. Agencies often get just a few hours' notice, and the impact zone could stretch across hundreds of miles. So, aviation officials face a tough choice. Close huge chunks of airspace, or roll the dice with thousands of passengers in the sky. According to recent research, some of the world's busiest airspaces already face a 26% annual chance of being affected by an uncontrolled re-entry. That's more than 1 in 4. And not because anyone's being reckless, it's just because the numbers are exploding. Over the past decade, the number of objects in low Earth orbit has doubled. And here's the real danger. The more crowded space becomes, the higher the chance that debris collides with more debris, creating even more debris. It's called Kessler syndrome, a kind of orbital domino effect where one collision triggers another, and another, until entire orbits become unusable. And with companies like SpaceX and national space agencies launching more and more stuff into space, we could be setting the stage for exactly that. Meanwhile, back on Earth, we're flying more than ever. Commercial air traffic has more than doubled since 2000. That means more people in the air, more planes in flight paths, and more chances for a tragic overlap between something falling and something flying. And when that moment comes, there may be no warning. And if that moment ever comes, we probably wouldn't even see it. I mean, before it hits the news. Even with all our fancy satellites, spotting a tiny metal thing dropping out of orbit is nearly impossible. But again, most debris doesn't make it to the ground. As these objects plummet through Earth's atmosphere, the intense heat from re-entry usually causes them to burn up completely. That's especially true for smaller or lightweight pieces like aluminum fragments or insulation. Also, even when stuff does survive re-entry, a mid-air collision with a plane is extremely rare. Planes cruise at 35,000 feet, while falling space junk comes screaming down from hundreds of miles up, whizzing past that height in seconds. The chances of a plane being in the exact spot at the exact time are incredibly slim. It's like tossing a dart from space and trying to hit a mosquito flying across a football field, while blindfolded. The timing, the alignment, the odds? Practically zero. But with more darts and more mosquitoes? That's why experts are still worried. The amount of space junk is growing fast. More stuff falling means more chances for something to go wrong. And while the odds of a direct strike remain low, the risk of aerospace disruption is very real. So, can't we just clean it up? You'd think that with all our high-tech satellites, space stations, and reusable rockets, someone would have invented a cosmic vacuum cleaner by now. But space cleanup is way more complicated than it sounds. For one, the junk is moving fast. Snagging this stuff is like trying to catch bullets while being strapped to a rocket yourself. There's also the size problem. Some pieces are too small to track, and others are too big to ignore. Plus, no one can agree whose job it is to clean up the mess. If a country launches a satellite that later breaks apart and becomes debris, is it their job to retrieve it? So far, no one really knows. Okay, when said like that, it sounds impossible even to me, but I have faith in scientists. However, it's not all bad news. The European Space Agency is pushing for a zero-debris policy for future missions. They want every satellite and rocket launched to have a built-in plan for getting out of orbit safely. Meanwhile, scientists are working on robotic grippers, basically giant space claws that could one day grab junk and fling it into a controlled burn in Earth's atmosphere. This goes to show that the problem is understood, and while difficult, the cleanup is not impossible, if we address it in time. The sooner we start taking it seriously, the better the odds that your next flight stays boring and uneventful. You know, the way flights are supposed to be. Unless you sit by the window, then it's breathtaking and awe-inspiring. So the next time you're staring out your airplane window at 35,000 feet, relax. You're more likely to spill your coffee than get hit by space junk, or upgraded to first class by accident. Scientists, engineers, and even robot claws are already on the case. Space might be messy now, but we've cleaned up bigger messes before. And with the right moves, we can keep the skies safe for everyone. And who knows? Maybe in a few decades, you'll be booking a window seat for a flight out into space. Just make sure it comes with asteroid or junk insurance.
That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos and stay on the bright side.